Welcome to the Wisconsin Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Corey Raymond.
Oh, hey there, guy.
Each week, we bring you interviews with some of Wisconsin's top real estate investors who share their tips, tricks, and strategies that you can implement right away.
Oh, crepes.
This show is dedicated to helping Wisconsin real estate investors elevate their game. Along with interviews, I'll also dive into hot topics and solo episodes and feature experts from various real estate sectors across Wisconsin.
You betcha.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Wisconsin Investor Podcast Show. I'm your host, Corey Raymond, and I'm super excited because today I've got a power couple here in real estate, Mitch and Katie Ehly. What's going on, guys?
What's up?
Hi.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, appreciate you guys being here. So you guys are zooming in here or calling in for those of you guys listening from Milwaukee. Is that correct?
Yep. We live about 40 minutes north of Milwaukee in the West Bend area for those who know their Wisconsin geography very well. So close, but still far enough away to enjoy the non-cityscape.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. You got the best of both worlds, right? Close to
right.
Further out. So, well, I wanted to have you guys on because I'm really excited about, you guys and I met probably about a year ago or something, as you guys made an acquisition that we're going to talk about here at our co-working space that we own up in Fish Creek. And we'll get into that in a little bit, but just give us a little background. Like, how did you guys get into real estate investing? Are you guys both working now? Are you retired from that and fully real estate investing? Like, give our audience a little bit of the background on you guys.
Yeah, so the birth of the real estate came from Mitch's brain. So Mitch actually came up with the idea in 2021. We were kind of looking at new ways to obviously like repurpose. I don't want to say repurpose, but like add value to our money and not have it be in the stock market and case, etc. We're both millennials, so we obviously have watched, the economy do many things over our lifetimes. And so, creative financing, I think, was one way we wanted to go. And Mitch had kind of started doing some background work into real estate investing. And so we kind of made that move in October. So we acquired we purchased our first home in Sister Bay, which is in beautiful Door County. For those who don't know, if you look at your left hand, if your thumb was a county, that's where Door County is. That's how it tell people. And so from there, we obviously fixed up the place, turned it into a short-term rental. It's called Northwoods Farmstead. It's our baby. And then from there, Mitch had been part of like the Vodacy short-term rental group, and we had met some other people who were interested in doing something similar as well in Wisconsin. And long story short, we ended up starting our co-hosting business with somebody that he met through Vodacy, and then it kind of grew from there. So we also now co-host 5 different homes,
Cool.
4 of them being in, 3 of them, being in Door County, one of them being in Eagle River, Wisconsin. So in the Great North Woods. And then this year, along with our amazing partners, Luke and Katie, we purchased our first motel that also has a short-term rental on the property. And so we've kind of just started to steamroll ahead and moved into the space quickly, but really strategically as well.
So wait, your first acquisition was October of 2023?
2021.
Oh, 2021. Okay. I missed that part.
2021.
Okay. I missed that part. So, okay. I was like, good Lord, you guys went from buying an STR to co-host a bunch of places to a motel in like rapid time. That would be like a new record, I think. So
we really committed.
Yeah, it's very committed. These guys going to do something. They're going to do it quick. Right.
Right.
No, that's awesome. But I love that. Even 2021, you said, right? That's really, 3 years ago. Right.
Right.
It didn't take you guys long.
And it has, I would say, gone rapidly over the last year, because basically the first full year and a half was mostly about us learning how to operate our own STR. As we had the one property, and we did kind of take the approach from the beginning that we had a feeling we were going to want to expand, and so we took the approach from the very beginning, which I think, whether it's right or wrong, I think a lot of first-time investors, at least in the short-term rental space, you know, kind of just ride the Airbnb listing to death. And, you know, and obviously that's super powerful platform. We love working with it, but you know, we kind of took the approach from the beginning that we wanted to try to automate as much as we possibly could. And we had, you know, a ton of softwares working for us, even when we just had that one property.
Okay.
So it did make it so that when we did start to expand, it was a lot simpler for us to add on properties because we were fully experienced with all of the platforms that we knew we were going to need.
Yeah.
Because we had been working with those softwares and platforms for ourselves, just for our one STR. So, you know, realistically growing from 1 to 6 STRs in, you know, about a year, really wasn't all that difficult in terms of, you know, it's basically just, you know, a slightly increased message volume, but really in terms of operations, it wasn't a huge lift because we were already using all the softwares.
Oh, I think that's such a great point, Mitch, because you know, one of our earliest mentors when we started, we're mostly in the wholesale business. We have our long terms and our short terms and stuff like that as well, but our main day-to-day focus is in wholesaling. But when we started, we met with a local mentor, and one of the first things he said is build your company as if you're already making what you thought you were going to make,
Right.
and then it's going to be very easy to plug in people or processes as you go. And one of the things was bookkeeping. We have like 1 or 2 rentals right now. Why do we want to book? We don't need to pay a bookkeeper. He's like, trust me, you're going to want to get that bookkeeper now and get him
Oh
set
my
up
God.
and get him going.
We learned
Learn
that
that
lesson.
too.
Yeah. I mean, the first, obviously, as you learn your first year, like, you know, you take simple accounting courses. Like if you work in corporate, like you learn about P&Ls. And then when you've actually got to do like the day-to-day operations of a P&L and invoicing, like, oh, sweet Lord. Like there were so many weekends that were spent, like Mitch and I just like trying not to get angry. Like this is how we're spending our Saturday.
Yes.
And we finally invested in a bookkeeper and it has been like, it's a game changer. So
Yes.
highly recommend that to everybody.
Yes. I think if you're an A type personality and you're a driver and you just are like more visionary focused, doing books, at least I'll speak for me, is like nails on a chalkboard. It is like
Yes.
my stress and cortisol. I can like literally, I could just see cortisol pumping through my veins as I'm like trying to figure out what was this transaction for 6 months ago and where's the receipt for this and blah, 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 blah. So that's a
Yeah.
huge lesson for those of you guys just getting started in real estate, listening in. Just get a bookkeeper now if you think you're going to be successful.
Yeah, do it now and save yourself the trouble.
Well,
Okay.
and I think too, like when you look at that strategy of like, you know, you build your business of like where you want it to be and to keep going. You know, my dad ran his own business for years and he's always like, you got to work in the business and then you got to grow the business. And so when you work in the business, it's the day-to-day things where it's value add for now, but it's not value add for the future. And so it's like if you can find people or processes to like let you focus more on the business of the future and the strategy and like growing it versus working in it. You know, I think that's also too long term, like a better way that like as an owner, like you can keep moving yourself forward and not just be constantly stuck, you know, working in the business versus like growing the business.
For sure. And you mentioned something, Katie, it was very strategic. You said of how you guys set this up, and Mitch, you're talking about these systems and processes and stuff like that. I assume you were both working full time when you started going down this path, right? Was that out of necessity that you had to build these processes because of your time was so limited, or was it truly like, hey, we want to grow to here, and so we're gonna start with this longer term vision and work it backwards to today? Or how did that decision come to be?
I think it was a little of both. You know, we were both working full time at the time, and that definitely played a role. But I think also in the back of my mind, like I was kind of looking at it as though I had a pretty good gut feeling that we were going to want to keep doing it. And I'm a very tech forward thinker, I would say, and you know, I was not taking on that first property in my mind thinking like how do I do this where I have to do everything myself at all times. Like I was thinking about it, how can I set this up so that we can create a really good guest experience, which is like step one. If you don't do that, nobody's gonna want to stay with you. But past that, how can then we automate as much as we possibly can behind the scenes to make it so that we're creating that positive guest experience, but trying to do it with, as little or as minimal human interaction as possible. Not that you don't have to answer the call when somebody calls, or not that you don't have to find a solution when there's a problem, but a lot of the additional work that goes into it can be automated to a degree.
Yeah, I love that because you did two things, right? You set yourself up for future success, but you also let real estate be as passive as you could make it in the short term game, which is hard to do. Short term
Right.
rental game is very active income in most
Yep.
cases. So I love that you're taking something that's typically a super active business and you're saying, well, we're going to automate and use tech and leverage to free our time up. And then that also just allows you to scale so much quicker, like what you guys have done
Right.
in the last couple of years. So I think that's fantastic. Talk to me quick as a husband and wife. I'm going to be interviewing a lot of husband and wives on this podcast, I guess. But my wife and I started the business together too in 2016. She's now in this last year pretty much removed herself from all things business related, which has been quite a journey for her to get to this point where she feels like she can not be involved anymore. But talk to me about, for you guys as a couple starting this, both working full time, growing this business together. Like, what are some of the things that you guys complement each other really well on? And then what are some of the challenges that you guys have had to sort of work through to get yourselves to where you are today? And maybe you're still experiencing those and still working through those, but what does that look like for the couples out there listening, of like getting started in this together, working together, those types of things?
Yeah, it's been a dynamic. I mean, I think when we first started and we were working full time, and both of us having some pretty demanding jobs and hours, like at least for me, I walked into it of like, oh man, it's like this is an opportunity for me to have like un undisrupted time with Mitch. Like, so for me, it was like this was the time we get to spend together, because during the week, like we are going each every direction. And Mitch used to travel a lot for his job. So he would leave on a Monday and not come home till Friday.
Oof.
And so like for us, like it was a really good way for us to be able to like spend time together when our jobs did not allow us to do that.
Okay.
I think the really great thing is that, with the two of us, like Mitch said, he is really techie. Like he loves technology. He loves learning about it, utilizing it. I am a non-techie millennial.
Okay.
I finally got social media back this year for the first time in like 5 or 6 years. Like I use my phone when needed, but like I don't even have a TikTok. Like I'm not into technology.
Yep.
But my background is marketing and PR.
Okay.
And so for me, like, he knows the systems and he works in an operations role. So he's like really left brained and I'm really right brained. And so for us, like, as much sometimes as that creates the friction with things like accounting, where I'm like, why can you not do it this way? And he's like, because Katie, you literally cannot do it that way. And I'm like, well, this is stupid. I want to move on and never do this again. And
Hence
so
the bookkeeper.
hence the
Yes.
bookkeeper.
A marriage saver, the book.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
Kristen's amazing, love her. But like it's those things where it's like I think we also too found out like where our strengths are and where our weaknesses are. And it's just like really helping each other like grow those strengths and weaknesses.
Yep.
So it's been fun. And I think like as stressful as it can be at times, where you're sometimes looking at your spouse and it's like, why are you the way you are? You really learn to grow together through it, because my biggest philosophy is you grow through what you go through. And like, if you're going through this together, like it's been fun, like to say the least. And obviously we've had a lot of growth and change over the years. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a great journey with him. That's kind of just been like our thing that, nobody else can really, I don't want to say touch, but it's just like our thing together, if that makes any.
Oh, that's awesome. Have you guys ever read Rocket Fuel?
Mm-mm.
Okay, it's a great book. Gino Wickman, the guy who wrote Traction and made that whole thing,
Oh yeah.
famous. So he wrote another book called Rocket Fuel. And when we first started, Karen and I had some struggles personality wise. She's very like, we need data and like behind the scenes operations. And I'm like, let's just get sales. Let's just talk to more people. she's like, but how do you know who to talk to if you don't measure? And I'm like, we don't need to measure. Let's just do more action.
Yeah,
And
just
Yep.
and so
10x
we,
your 10x your action. That solves
yeah,
every.
it solves everything. And so her and I would have like these like clashes where it would get like really like we didn't understand each other. We're speaking two different languages. And we read that book and it's Visionary Integrator. We've all heard
Yep.
that term if you're here. It was in that book they talked about it. And I was like, oh, that's why she's that way. And then she's like, oh, that's why he's that way. And we actually need each other. And that's how we're going to be
Right.
successful. Wow, we're both valuable. This is crazy. Okay. And it helped us really like that literally like propel. We still obviously had our challenges through the business, but it really helped us appreciate each other's strengths, I think, more
Right.
so than like, why can't they be like me? It's like, no, we
Right.
don't
Yeah.
want them to be like me because then we'd
Right.
be like,
Right.
whoo, who knows? But okay, so I want to get into a couple other things. You guys are doing something really cool. You guys are hosting and running your own STRs and motel from a distance. So obviously that presents some challenges. You guys have alluded to some of the tech that you use and some of the other things. Like, talk to us about anything specific that helps you guys either from the tech side or just from managing cleaners and finding cleaners and staff and those kinds of things. And like, if somebody else is listening to this, say in California, and they're going, man, I would love to get an STR in Wisconsin, but how do I do that? What are some things that you guys could maybe offer them as advice or some tips or strategies or things to do to help make that a reality?
Yeah, the in terms of like cleaners, we're fortunate we have a really good partner that we work with on actually all the properties that we're involved in,
Okay, even the ones in the north.
except for the one
Okay.
in
Oh, sorry.
except for the one in Eagle River. Obviously, that's a very different area, so we do have a separate cleaning team there. But all the rest of the properties that we're involved with are in Door County, and so we went through kind of a process when we first started with our very first STR of kind of a due diligence process of sorts of trying to find cleaners that not only did we feel we could trust, but we felt like we could maintain a positive relationship with as we grew.
Mm.
And so we were fortunate that we interviewed a handful of people, which is what I would say. If you're a in-state investor, out-of-state investor, whatever the situation might be, if you are looking for that STR in Wisconsin, I would definitely say it is worth time spent together in person. That's what we did. We did interviews in person together.
Okay.
And we interviewed, I think, 4 or 5 different companies that were interested in working with us for our first one, and ended up making the decision to partner with our current cleaning partner. And we've had a really positive relationship with her and her team over the years.
Cool.
And it has allowed us to scale, from that one STR to now we have 20 units total.
Mm-hmm.
And it did work out pretty well for us too, that we purchased a motel in the same area. And so, our team, through her and her team, she was able to expand her team, to bring on the motel as a
Cool.
client, and basically service our Door County motel as if it were a traditional STR.
Okay.
And so we have, with the motel, which I know we haven't gotten, too much in depth yet on that project, but with that we have 15 rooms there, and there's a lot of laundry. There's a lot of things to be done, and so we have multiple people from her team there every day, turning rooms, getting ready for the next guests, taking care of any special requests we have, doing laundry, maintaining the outside of the property, things like that we're fortunate to have a good partner there.
Yeah.
I would definitely say for us, it was important for us to spend that time in person, to be able to get to know somebody and look somebody in the eye and get a feel for what it would be like to potentially do business with that person. And what I've always said as it relates to distance, people ask, when we talk to people about investing in properties that are not immediately in your backyard.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it doesn't matter if the property is an hour away or if the property is 1,000 miles away. The way that we set our businesses up is that if something comes up, we have people that we call to take care of those things. and that means if a toilet is broken and needs to be repaired, I'm not running there to go do that, and to me, that's no different if the property was in Hawaii or here. Like,
Yeah.
it's 3 hours away from our house, and I'm not going to drive 3 hours to fix a toilet. Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I think it's definitely a critical thing to make sure you set up a very good team in the area that can help solve those problems.
Yep.
But again, that's, whether, like you said, it's somebody that's in California or somebody that's in Southern Wisconsin. To me, I don't think it really matters.
Mhm.
It's about being there, spending some time with each of those people face to face, and kind of, finding the people that you feel like you can really trust, and then trying to build a really strong relationship with them, so that they trust you and you trust them, and you can, do a lot of business together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is like also because we were obviously able to scale so quickly. And then when we went into Eagle River, it was like assuming that that market was going to be exactly like Door County. We have
Mm.
an amazing cleaner. We have a handyman who can literally fix and do anything. And going into Eagle River, having that same expectation was incredibly different. I mean,
Mm.
so I think it's also too like asking questions about like not only what you expect of like your cleaner, of your handyman, but also to like understanding the market as well. Because in Eagle River, like our handyman won't do anything electrical and plumbing. He's like, you got to call an electrician or you got to call a plumber. Like it's very much like, I'll fix a closet door, but like I'm not going to screw with wiring. So I think it's also just like understanding the market and like what their expectations are of what they're going to bring from a service perspective, or as a partner perspective, because it can be drastically different. And I think for us, that was kind of like one of the challenges that I think we're still working through, is because we've been in Door County for a long time. Obviously now, well, I'm saying a long time, 2021, so almost 4 years.
Yeah.
But because we've scaled so much there, we've got a team. We've got a nice Rolodex to
Yep.
really back. We know who to call, or like what, our partners like can cover, what they can't cover. And I think, when we went to Eagle River and started that market, it was just drastically different. And it's also too like a lot of small towns, in Wisconsin at least, it's, oh, I know this person because their son went to school with my son, or
Mhm.
so it's very much word of mouth. So I think it's also like knowing that you're not going to call electrician and have the first one call you back. Like asking your partners to be like, hey, do you know a good electrician? Do they know you? Would you be okay if I say you referred me, etc.
Yeah.
So I think it's also kind of just like understanding those markets, and then also like what you expect out of them as one of your teammates.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome stuff, guys. A couple things I heard there is, sounds like other than maybe Eagle River, you guys jumped in a little bit, but Door
mhm.
County, it sounds like you spent some time really upfront on the systems, on the processes, on the people, right? Building the
Yeah.
team, getting comfortable with who you're going to go. And that just has allowed you guys to scale really quickly. And Eagle River, the other thing I heard there too, though, is like you guys just took action in Eagle River. You got somebody, and
Yep.
now you just get there's just different challenges as you're kind of learning as you go. So it's not perfect always either. I think that's important for people to realize too when they're out there looking at like, gosh, I'd love to do this, but I got to have everything perfect before I start, and I got to have a website and business cards and all these things. And it's like just go do it and you'll figure it out, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I think like the biggest thing too is like as part of this journey as a type A perfectionist is you can't be too hard on yourself. Like I have to tell myself that daily. I think Mitch sometimes has this conversation like weekly of, if you're doing your best and you're putting your best foot forward, like you're doing a great job. Like you're
Yeah.
doing the best that you can. Like, progress over perfection is now like the new credo I feel like I need to live by.
Yeah.
But it's true. Like you go in and it's like nothing will always ever be perfect, but that's okay. Like,
Right.
I mean, as long as, the guests are having a great experience, you're not, completely burning the midnight oil to yourself, like to get it done. You just kind of need to give yourself a pat on the back.
Mm-hmm.
Because, even when we were doing the motel and obviously there were lots of frustrations that came with, you know, completely renovating a very old motel and buildings. You know, one night we were standing in our mechanical room when we were having water come out of our sump pump because the piping ended up coming undone and there was water going everywhere and it was raining like 2 inches an hour. And I wanted to start to cry. And Mitch like looked at all of us. He's like, just remember, if this was easy, everybody would do it.
100%.
And so I think it's just also like giving yourself some grace because, you know, you'll figure it out. So, and it's okay to not have everything be absolutely perfect all the
For
time.
sure. And as long as you fail, but you learn from it, it's not fail.
Yeah.
Right. Fail forward. Right.
Yep. Fail forward. 100%.
You're always going to learn. That's awesome. Well, let's get into, if you guys want to share the dirty details with everybody, I would love to hear some numbers on this motel. I want to hear the details. How did you find it? How did you get it? How did you finance it? Give our listeners, you know, kind of the package. Because what I think is really cool about this, so I'll give a little background on this motel. This motel, as you guys said, was pretty old and run down. It was a traditional motel. I believe it was owned for like decades by the same folks, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
And so it was the classic, like you come in, you knock on the door, you go in, you check in with the innkeeper, they take you to the room, you know, much more personal interaction happening there, but also from a scalability standpoint, like really difficult to, you know, do anything else because either you have to be there or somebody has to be there. And so you guys kind of flipped that model on its head a little bit. So tell us a little bit about what that thing looked like before, where is it at now, and the numbers and all the juicy details.
Yeah. It's really been I can confidently say it's been a fun project. It's been it was a very stressful winter because, you know, we were under a lot of tight timelines to be able to get this thing turned around. We ended up purchasing the motel in September of 2023. And we knew that we wanted to, you know, basically completely renovate and rebrand this property that's been around since the 1940s, and, you know, completely turn it into a new brand, a new feel, obviously new rooms, everything. And so we knew it was going to be a heavy lift. And on top of that, there's a 5-bedroom, 4-bath home on property that when the previous owners owned it, it was their personal residence. They lived on site. They lived in that home, and then they took care of the 15 motel rooms themselves. And so it was, you know, it was run as a very traditional old school motel. And great, worked fine for them. You know, but we had kind of a different game plan, I would say, coming into it. And I think really the energy that we put in and that our partners, Luke and Katie, shout out to them, that they put into their STR business as well, because they have a separate business as well, with short-term rentals down in the Smoky Mountains. And they had done a lot of the same things that we had done in terms of automation with their properties, knowing that their properties were, you know, 1,000 miles away from where they live, because they live right by us here in the West Bend area. And so it was kind of the four of us putting our heads together and saying, this is what we want to create. Let's put our game plan together as how do we get there? And so, you know, it definitely was a busy winter to keep things on schedule and trying to get everything done. As you well know, I was in the co-working space about every second day. But as we were up there trying to get everything done. So it was a busy winter, but, you know, we were able to get the project completed and get open for the beginning of this season, 2024 season, which was May 17th was our opening day, our grand opening. And we launched the newly branded Fresh Coast Motel earlier this spring, and it's been super fun. We've been honestly kind of wowed, amazed at the amount of demand for our product. You know, we had obviously run all sorts of numbers before we ever purchased this property, and run a lot of different scenarios. And, you know, because this was a more commercial transaction, we did have previous year's financials to work off of, to be able to see, you know, what were these 15 motel rooms doing? How did they have their pricing structures set up? You know, what were their expenses like? We were fortunate to be able to work through a lot of those and kind of try to game plan for, you know, what we're the expenses like. We were fortunate to be able to work through a lot of those and kind of try to game plan for, you know, what we're the expenses like. We were fortunate to be able to work through a lot of those and kind of try to game plan for, on the expense side, what do we think the expenses are going to change? Like, are we going to still incur this type of expense? Do we need to add for X, Y, and Z for how we're going to do business?
Mm-hmm.
And we tried to game plan that out as best we could in a lot of different scenarios. But I think before you close on a transaction like this, there's things you just don't know. And we ran into some big expenses that we didn't during the renovation that we weren't expecting. And we had to figure it out. There was a lot of bumps in the road, but we figured it out. We made it through, and we were fortunate that we had been doing a pretty consistent job of posting on social, with everything that was going on with our renovation progress and things like that. And we were able to get a pretty decent email list going before we ever even launched our new website for the motel. And I think the first turning point in our heads was we launched our new website towards the end of January of this year. And we kind of coincided the launch of the new website with the opening of our calendar.
Okay.
And so when we launched our new website and opened our calendar, we sent an email out. And all of the people that had been following us on social and had seen what we were doing with this old motel, renovating it, turning it into this new boutique motel experience. I think all of us, we talked about it when we sent that email out. I think we were thinking like, man, if we got like 5 or 10 bookings today, like that'd be really cool to like see some people like really be interested in what we're doing.
Yeah.
We sent that email out. We got 70 bookings that day.
Whoa.
We were blown away. I mean,
my goodness.
nonstop. And we just literally got 70 bookings in the first 24 hours of opening our calendar. And we were like completely thrown back.
My goodness.
Oh my God, we're working off of renderings at that time. We had renderings of what we wanted the rooms to look like. So we weren't even selling on a completed product. And it literally kind of shook us of like, holy shit, I think we're onto something.
What did we get ourselves into here? This is awesome.
Yeah. And ever since then, it has honestly been crazy how much people are kind of in love with the product that we have built now.
That is awesome.
And certainly it's not perfect. Nothing's perfect. We definitely received a little bit of criticism, I think, from a number of individuals that didn't like the fact that we were not, handing someone a physical key anymore. And that's fine. That's this experience is not going to be for everybody,
Correct.
but
nor do you want it to be.
Nor do we want it to be.
Yeah.
But from a numbers perspective, both our average daily rate has been significantly higher than what we projected, and our occupancy rates are also significantly higher than we projected.
That helps.
Yeah, it helps. It helps. Yeah.
It makes, and Mitch talked about a lot of the challenges. Some of them were potholes that I jokingly say we had to crawl out of because I didn't know if we were going to be able to we'd always figure it out, but I think it was to the point where it wasn't things that we were anticipating. And looking back at it, we met somebody at a short-term rental conference that was like, literally just videotape everything. Like anything you're doing, like videotape it. And it was funny because a few days ago, like I literally videotaped myself crying after we were having some issues with like toilets, like getting toilets to fit in certain bathrooms and all, because it's old. So every room is not the same. And so we were hauling around 3 different sets of toilets to see, okay, does room 9 get an elongated bowl, a round bowl, and then, like what size is the, the roughin, because the ruffins were all different. And so I literally took a photo of myself sitting in one of the rooms crying because I was like, you know what? You people want to see this? I'll show you what this is like. And it's like 10 o'clock at night, but now it's like, looking back at it, it's like, you have to laugh. But I mean, I laughed at it because it was like, this has just gone, I think we knew it was going to go great, but I think like now that we're up and we're running and we're hearing how happy like people are, like we're seeing the demand for it. I mean,
Yeah.
it made all of those moments of crying on toilets like so worth it.
That is awesome. I love that. Not that you were crying on a toilet, but I think
No,
now
it was a long day.
yeah,
Might
Like,
have been.
it
It's
might
might have
have
been.
been, but like it was just, yeah, it's
that's
just the little things that, can just get you.
that's so awesome. And that's the realness of it, right? That's
Yeah.
anybody who's sitting, you can watch social media a lot of times and everything else, and everybody's life looks perfect and it looks like so easy. And oh, look at how many units I have and all this stuff. Da, 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 da. But
Right.
I just posted something a couple days ago about like everybody sees the glory, but they don't know the story, right?
Yeah,
And
Mhm.
100%.
and now they're going to look at you and go, "Oh, you guys are so lucky because you
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
this motel," and they don't know this whole risk that you had to take and the journey and everything that led up to that for the years prior. And I mean, there's just so much that goes into that acquisition and now seeing the results and the fruits of the labor. But you had to plant a lot of seeds, and then now you're reaping what you sowed. But
Yeah.
it takes a little bit. So when you guys were getting into this motel, were you seeking a motel? How did you find this opportunity? Was it just posted on LoopNet, or like where did this come to? How did you guys acquire or start? So somebody out there looking like, gosh, I'd love to do that. How do you find one of these things?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure like anything, and you're an expert in this, finding deals is not always the easiest.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly finding deals that pencil out well is even more difficult. But we got the idea at a conference a couple years ago. We were actually there with our now partners, Luke and Katie, and we were both invested in the short-term rental space, obviously. And the conference is called the STR Wealth Conference. Shout out to the STR Wealth Conference. But that conference, they had a presenter that talked about making a transition from traditional residential short-term rentals into a more commercial asset, like a boutique hotel. And they talked through some of the numbers, and honestly, one of the biggest points that they drove home that really created interest for us was being able to control the value of the asset.
Mm.
And being able to have the work that you put into both the property and the operations and sales and P&L of the property itself have a direct reflection on the value of the business and the real estate.
Sure. So it's valued more off of net income than it is a comparable sales, what you're saying, of a piece
Exactly.
of real estate. Sure.
Exactly. Yep.
Yep.
And the work that you put in to be able to create the numbers that you create has a direct impact on what the business is worth.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, if we were to go sell our STR in Sister Bay, which we're not going to, but if we were going to, it would be sold based on market comps.
Right.
And even though our property there, I'm pretty confident in saying outperforms any similar property in the area, from a revenue standpoint, it would not theoretically really matter,
Right.
in terms of what that house gets listed for.
Right.
And so that kind of really opened our eyes, I would say, to like, okay, that seems like something that would be really powerful in the right hands. And it really kind of opened our eyes to it. So we started to just kind of talk about it a little bit. And at the time, I think it was more just a pipe dream of like, okay, we're going to go directly from buying our very first STR to buying a motel. Like that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
It seems very not realistic until you actually do it,
Yeah.
but that's what kind of sparked the interest. And then, we knew that after we started to do a little bit of research and look at price points, what things are selling for, being listed for, we knew that we were probably going to want to take on our first one with some sort of partners. And so it worked out that we have a great relationship with Luke and Katie, and they were, in the same boat. They live in the same area. They were, interested in the same things. And so it just worked out that we started kind of talking together of like, hey, would we ever be interested in trying to do something together here? And after some time had passed, we kind of grew more and more convinced, I would say, that we were really interested in at least like pursuing it
Yeah.
and see what happens. And so we actually went and looked at a different property, also in Door County, last April. We went and looked at that together, all four of us, and ran a bunch of numbers on it, thought about it in detail, decided it wasn't really what we were looking for. But it was the first time that we had the experience of going through a commercial process, right? Of going through, Luke and I probably called 30 different banks to figure out, okay, who would even lend to us and who's interested in this type of asset, and even that process alone was a great learning experience because we ended up finding our bank that was willing to finance for us.
Love that.
Out of that process, and we didn't even buy that place, right? But we kept that relationship going with them, so that the next time a property came up that we were interested in, we could rekindle that conversation. And so we really, I think it allowed us to learn a lot, just by going through it one time, getting a rep of, going and doing a tour on a commercial property and looking at things that are maybe you don't maybe care quite as much about, on a much lower priced residential asset.
Yeah.
And so it definitely opened our eyes a little bit, taught us a lot. And I guess it was about 2 months later or 3 months later, this property hit the market. And we had continued to talk amongst the four of us, like, hey, well, let's keep looking. And if something pops up, like, let's go take a look. We were not actively doing any, outbound outreach to people trying to find properties. We were just kind of like passively, looking on LoopNet or MLS feeds or whatever. And this property hit, and I got an email alert that it had hit the market. And I saw it and I was like, oh man, I know that location. That location is like one of the best locations in Door County.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I pulled up the listing, looked at it, looked at the price. The price was kind of similar to what the other one we looked at was listed for. And looked at the photos and, did my whole cringe thing at the photo. But I was like, man, this location is so good.
Yeah.
And so I immediately texted Luke, and him and I went up the next day, and went and looked at it. And, I still have it's funny how you remember things and you save things. I still have the videos saved on my phone of us, like, walking from across the street. We're right across the street from the public beach.
Yeah.
Walking across the street and we're like, man, look at this. The beach is here. The place is right here. This is crazy.
Yeah.
At the time, obviously it feels unrealistic, but yeah, we went and looked at it. Luke and I really liked it. We came back a little bit later, and Luke's wife Katie came and we did a second showing. My Katie here was not able to see it because
don't be me. Don't be me. Don't be me. I couldn't make any of the showings because of my job. And so like I literally did not physically get eyes on this place until after we were already like halfway through the process of
my goodness, that is awesome.
So I mean, blind, I'm gonna say like just trust, like when they were like, this isn't like, obviously it needs some love, but like this is kick ass. Like we need to go through it. And I remember sitting in a conference room, getting done with a conference call, just being like, okay, like just full send. Like if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And then I remember I was in a conference room like it was like a few days later when we submitted our offer. And Mitch literally texted me, he's like, are you sure you don't want to go see it before we go up? And I'm like, it's fine. I totally trust you. And then I remember the first time we went up there and I went to go see it. It was probably like 30 days out from closing. I was like, oh my God, what did we just do? Like I just remember like the room, like just with, it was amazing location, but the rooms just were, they were just really outdated. Like it needed a lot of love. And I just remember thinking like, oh my God, like what did I just do? Like
awesome.
so yeah, I mean, and it worked out in the end, but don't don't be me.
Oh
Just
my
don't be me.
goodness. Oh my God. I love that, you guys. This is so awesome. There is so much more that I would love to unpack with you guys. Just going back to this one transaction. There's so much there that
Yeah.
our hopefully our listeners took away here today from this, because there's a lot of lessons in that, and I appreciate all the gold nuggets. We're going to switch gears here, guys, and wrap it, because we're up against time, and I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time. Kind of a fun question. I'm gonna make this more relevant to Door County. Do you guys have a favorite like date night spot in Door County, or activity you love to do in Door County, or someplace for our listeners who are like, hey, I'm going to go to Door County? Like, where should they go, or where do you guys love to go? What's the favorite go to?
Man,
We have a lot.
we have a lot. So this is really hard for us.
Yeah, we have a lot of spots that, we're fortunate we have a lot of friends in the area now too. And a lot of those friends own businesses, own restaurants, and activities and things to do. But yeah, I mean, some of our favorites are our friends Mike and Megan from the Boathouse in Sister Bay. It's one of our favorite spots. If you like lobster, go get their lobster roll. It's fantastic. Our neighbors at the motel at Blue Horse Beach Cafe. We ate breakfast there every single day for 6 months straight.
And I also brushed my teeth there when we had no water. So shout out for them letting me brush my teeth there when we stayed there with no running water.
Yeah. So shout out to Karina for feeding us for 6 months while we were doing this project. But that place is amazing. For dinner, we've always been in love with Alexander's. It's our favorite restaurant up there.
Yeah.
Alexander's is amazing.
Time.
Yep. Time up the street.
In Sister Bay.
Yep, Tonda at Time is amazing. And Behringer's in Fish Creek is awesome. Activity wise, you got to go putt at the Red Putter. Very important.
That's how you earn your I visited Door County sticker.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Have gone and got to the putter and maybe the drive in.
Yep, 100%. And we've grown a good relationship now with the folks at Door County by Water, which they do boat tours and boat rentals, which is a great way to experience Door County. So
Eagle
certainly,
Trail.
Yep, yeah, Eagle Trail. Go and hike at Eagle Trail at Peninsula State Park. It's amazing.
I thought you were going to say your favorite spot to visit is Door County Co-working.
We do a lot of
our most frequented place.
Yeah, that might be. We might earn besides Blue Horse. Besides Blue Horse.
Yeah. No, we do love Door County Co-working, and it's the perfect spot to spend a day if you need to work, if you need to have a quiet spot. We do love it. And we do also recommend it to all of our guests at the motel as well.
Yep.
If they need a space.
Beautiful shameless plug here for me. I appreciate that.
I love it.
True.
I love it.
And one last thing, wine in Door County. Shout out to 1211. That is by far my favorite winery. In Sister Bay, right next to Time. We know one of the owners, Tim, and just their wine is it's unreal. It's my favorite.
I haven't been, but that might be date night this weekend.
Oh,
do it.
Do it.
It's amazing.
Like their wine is phenomenal. I mean, if you're a red drinker, like love their Pinot Noir. They have dry rosé, Barbera. That's not super sweet, but like still really crisp and delightful when it's hot out. And their Savi B, to throw out the Entitled Housewife. The Savi B there is amazing. So yeah,
awesome.
11 also too for wine.
I love it, guys. Well, thank you guys. You guys brought so much value today. This is an awesome episode. I think people are going to take a ton away from this. If anybody wants to get a hold of you guys, are you guys open to them reaching out to you? And what
100%.
would be the best way to get a hold of you guys?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously our handle for the motel is at Fresh Coast Motel. Wisco Host, which is our co-hosting company / our rental is, at Wisco, WISCO hosts, on Instagram. And you can follow along on my personal one. I'm Kate the Innkeeper. So that's
is that where they'll see you on the toilet crying?
No, I haven't that video, but I feel like now I need to
I think
watch
so.
Cry.
I think so.
Moving toilets. So and then you can follow along with Mitch at Mitch Ehly. Yep. So super easy.
Awesome, guys. Thank you guys so much for being on here. Guys, thanks for listening to this podcast. If you got some value out of this, please subscribe, like, share, do all that stuff. The more people that listen to this, the more guests we can continue to get, and hopefully the more value we can bring to all of you. And if you guys are looking for off-market deals, go to wisconsindiscountproperties.com, sign up for the buyers list, and get deals hitting your inbox every Monday morning. And this has been another episode of the Wisconsin Investor Podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next show. Hey, this has been another episode of the Wisconsin Investor. Thanks for tuning in. If you got some value out of the show, please go like, rate, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. And if you're new to investing in Wisconsin and you want to have a conversation with somebody from our team, we would love to have that conversation with you. To do that, just go to our website, wisconsindiscountproperties.com, hit the contact us form, put a little bit of your info in there, and somebody from our team will reach out and have a conversation, hopefully help you start moving forward in your investing journey here in Wisconsin. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode.